Welcome, FCS fans nation, to another episode of 1AA-Parlays. We are the show where we talk about the betting lines on the FCS on a bright and clear Saturday morning. I'm your host, Colby Peterson. With me once again, as always, the master, the Grand Vizier, Montana Parlay. How are you doing this week, Parlay?
I'm doing all right. You know, a little extra cash this week, and
Yep.
I don't know where I'm going to spend it, though. It's tough to find these lines this morning.
Yeah, that's a thing I think that we should point out at the outset. So we were looking around trying to find some fairly reliable preliminary lines, and it was difficult this week. So some of the things that we'll talk about are things that we did see, but there wasn't as much as we would like. So make sure that you're checking your sportsbooks apps if you're betting in a legal state this week, and just keep refreshing to see what you get, because you could find some gems, but you may not. So we only have so much insight this week because of the limited number of lines that have been posted. But before we get into all that, we want to thank the FCS Fans Nation. We want to encourage everybody to subscribe to their YouTube page. It's a good place to listen to them here. There are obviously a number of other shows besides AA Parlays that you could watch, keep you in the loop on what's going on across the FCS, not just across everything, but also some specific conferences like the UAC, some talking about the Valley, A-Team, B-Team, lots of good stuff out there. Make sure to follow the Fans Nation Network's YouTube channel, and also follow them on Facebook. They've got a great Facebook group, and on Twitter. I also wanted to shout out a little personal privilege here. I was like, I'm the host, so why not? Also wanted to shout out Walk On Apparel. The guys over at the FCS Fans Nation podcast have been shouting us out for a few weeks now as a sponsor. Appreciate them, so I thought I'd shout them out here too. Go to walkon-apparel.com if you're interested in getting some Idaho or Weber State homecoming gear this week. We got a special promo going. Automatic 15% off, so if you put it in your cart, Idaho or Weber State, you can check it out, of course. You can also use FCS Fans Nation code at checkout if you're a fan of Eastern Washington, Utah Tech, and UTC, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. All also available at Walk On Apparel. Part of your purchase, 10% of the profits go right back to those schools. And so we want to invest in the FCS as much as you, and also give you a great product to wear around game day. Go to walkon-apparel.com, check out what we got, make a purchase. It's a double benefit, and so we always say #UpTheFans. All right, Parlay, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about last week, because we've only got so much time this week, but we also only have so many lines. Overall, good week, man. We had a good week. I mean, you had a really good week. I only missed one, but you had a great week.
Yeah, and we hit our first parlay, I believe.
We did.
So that's more money for everyone. But yeah, I kind of kept it tight, didn't try to expand too much beyond conferences. I'm not as, privy on, and, just didn't try to do 5 or 6 picks. Kept it to 3. The one, I could have taken 4-0. Could have padded the stats, because I gave out, the early line on Holy Cross was like 26.
Right.
And I liked that. But then when it posted legally at 31.5, I said, stay away.
Too much.
And turns out it hit right smack dab in the middle with a 28-point win. So both ends, my what I said was right. So, I'd like to take that 4-0, but, 3 is enough. And overall record 12-4, which, I don't know, I think maybe that's why the books aren't – maybe some of you guys are actually betting real money, unlike my dumbass, and making these books not post their lines in a timely fashion.
Yeah. Like I said last week, I was not in on Holy Cross because the way they burned me the week before, and once it posted, like you said, a little too high for me, so it was stay away. But as you said, if it had posted at the 26.5 that we had thought, you'd hit, and you'd have gone 4-0 last week. But regardless, you still had a good week. Let's talk about some of your hits, man. First off, you hit on that NDSU minus 10.5. Good bounce back win the way you said.
Yeah, I watched the first 5 minutes. Then ESPN Plus was having some connection issues or something, but I threw out a little reverse jinx because it looked like NDSU was going to play a close one with Missouri State because Missouri State just marched down, scored early. NDSU punted on the next drive. I made a whiny tweet and turned off the feed, and then next thing I know, NDSU runs away with it. Everyone's like, "What the hell are you talking about? This isn't even close." But hey, a win's a win.
Absolutely. There were a lot of deceiving games like that looked early like they might be competitive. Weber State, NAU, but then they weren't. And so because of that, a lot of folks, we were vindicated in our picks last week because of it. Like you said, North Dakota State being one of those. After that initial drive from Missouri State, handled business, bounced right back and got the dub.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you bucked the trend last week and decided to go with the over on UCD-UM, and you were rewarded over 47.5, and they were.
Yeah, the Grizz were 5-0 on the unders, and sometimes bookmakers will make an overcorrection, and that's what happened here, especially in Sportsbook Montana, because nationwide books opened at 51.5. That would have been more of a stay away, but 47.5. Like I mentioned last week, that's just a 21-27, 28-0 type game, which Montana's been playing a bit of. And, man, after the first half, that looked like a no-brainer. And then it slowed down a bit, and I got a little nervous. But at the end of the day, it was a pretty easy cover. Again, bucking that trend turned out to be correct. And sticking with the over-unders, I don't know. I'm not an expert in any means in either of these conferences, but Fordham-Lehigh, that just hit me like I thought Fordham was going to beat. I thought Fordham could score 57.5 by themselves and just lay waste to Lehigh. Lehigh ends up winning, I believe, and that was an absolute. That was a money in the bank. Not long after halftime bet. I was trying to see the final score there.
Yeah, let me pull it up here really quickly.
It was one of those sweat-free bets. Yeah, 38.
Love those.
Fordham did come back and win because Lehigh was up by a couple touchdowns, if I remember correctly. 38-35. So that's 73 total points. It hit it by more than 2 touchdowns. Pretty easy win. So all of those games. You watched the NDSU game in the second half, the Davis Montana game, the way that first half rolled out, and then they were all just. You rarely get to have sweat-free bets like that, 3 of them. So I'll take it. I don't know what that means for this week. If I'm going to regress to the mean, hopefully not.
All right, let's take a look at some of the ones that I did. Once again, some fairly good picks. I came way up. Fantastic bankroll management last week, by the way. Came up big time, and so I got lots more money to play with this week, which is fun. I've already laid one bet down this morning. Non-FCS bet, but I got my eyes on that. It was a little high, the Washington-Oregon over, but I'm like, dude, this game is going to be an absolute shootout. I'm taking it. I'm absolutely taking it. Well, let's take a look at some of mine. Like I told you, everybody, NAU plus 13.5. That was money in the bank. You were printing money if you took that one. Weber State's offense, like I said, did not look great at all, and they had one great drive. They came out of the gate throwing short passes. It looked like it was going to be a different day for Weber State in Ogden, and then after that drive, they did nothing for the rest of the game. A lot of just mediocre offense once again after the initial drive. Northern Arizona, they were able to figure out a few things, and they win comfortably against Weber State in Ogden to tie the all-time series now. Weber State had gone up because of the win last year in Flagstaff. But this, like I told everybody last week, the way that, from what I've seen from my own team, I just don't think that they're going to be able to win by more than 2 scores. So we were rewarded there.
And I regret missing out on that. By the time I could bet it, it was below 10, and I stayed away. And then NAU wins by 17, so I didn't need any points. So, well. Glad you could make some money off your misery.
Yeah, I did, and I didn't say this last time, but we should have also taken the over or the under. It was over-under was set at 52.5 for that game. It ended up being a measly 37 points. So very comfortably under the under, and just not something that I bet. But if you did that, you also were rewarded. Next up, the Hampton game against Campbell. Hampton was actually up. Campbell, I thought I saw that they ended up coming back and they won by like a point. I think it was. Let me see if I can pull them up. Yeah. Oh, they won by 3 points, but it was Hampton plus 7.5. So did not cover. Campbell didn't, and was rewarded there. Even though, like we said last week, we were a little bit outside of our wheelhouse. CAA games, don't watch them because Flow Sports is weird, and I'm not willing to pay for another service for just the one conference. So we just watch the score bugs on ESPN.com, man. Next one up, like we talked about, Western Carolina plus 4.5 against Chat. That was Chat's Hoko. Absolute shootout, man. It was a wild one. I don't know if you watched it, Parlay, but it was a wild one.
Oh, I've learned to catch the last 5 minutes of Western Carolina games because they've been a blast so far this year.
Yeah, and that game, tons of offense, 102 points scored in that one. So if you took the over as well, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't 100 points. I'll tell you that. But it was insane. And another reason why ESPN Plus is great, right? Because you're just flipping through these games. Watching this one, it was back and forth. Western Carolina scored a late touchdown to go up. Just nuts, man. Just crazy nuts. But plus 4.5 was good enough, obviously, because not only did Chattanooga not cover, they lost. So rewarded there, too, for that one. And then finally, my last pick that didn't pay off, I took the Idaho Poly over at 59.5. Didn't hit. It was a late game, and they only ended up with 56. So just a little bit short. I had hoped that maybe Idaho would try and do something late, put up maybe 3, maybe another touchdown there just to kind of twist the knife. They did not. Didn't make it. So that was my one loss, going 3-1 last week. Parlay, a sparkling 3-0.
Idaho took the pedal off the gas in the second half, but they did score late enough to cover the spread. So that was big for me. I put in one last bet in late night Big Sky action. So, all right, this week.
Let's go.
Ooh. Okay, so like we said earlier, there's slim pickings on the spreads. We didn't know whether we'd come out of the show doing some speculation, going over some of the lines that I set, that I guessed on, and kind of hope to point you in the right direction. There are a few, though, that I am willing to lay my reputation on. Could ruin my record because it's kind of narrowed my focus, but it's in the Valley. So at least the first two are, and I generally pay attention to the Valley games. We got the ESPN Plus. They're a top 2 conference in the FCS. There's really no debating that. All right. So first off, I'm going to ride with this team again, although not playing the spread. I'm a little nervous on that. But I think it's going to be a slowdown game. It's going to be both teams are going to try to establish the running game. At least I hope so. North Dakota might need to try to air it out. They're probably going to have to. And so it's going to come down to how quick do they score, and does NDSU have to try to play catch up? And what I'm getting at here is I like the under 54.5. It's a rivalry game. NDSU's on the road, and they prefer to run it. UND has a decent run defense, actually a good run defense against their so far mediocre schedule. We'll see how that pans out against the Bison. But I'm playing under 54.5 in the Battle of Nodak. And again, slim pickings, so I'm kind of forcing some of these picks, but I feel good about that one. All right, here's one this is one where we're speculating on these teams. We don't know how both teams could be great. Both teams could be meh. It's hard because they've both had huge games against two teams that are supposed to be top 3 in the Valley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
South Dakota knocked off the Bison in Fargo. And last week, the surprise of the week across the board, but not probably for one of the guys watching, Youngstown State, that's a tough one to say, crushed SIU. And if you look at the box score in that game, it's not just the score. Sometimes, you have a blowout. There's a lot of turnovers. There's mistakes made. But this was an absolute just drubbing. SIU, Southern Illinois is supposed to be one of the better teams, one of the teams people are looking at that could possibly knock off the Jackrabbits later this year, and they put up a measly, I believe, 100 total yards, like just over 100 total yards. They had 6 yards rushing, 6 yards rushing in the whole damn game, and 94 yards passing. So an even 100 total yards. I mean, I think Sean Chambers is averaging that himself on the ground for the Bobcats. And the whole SIU couldn't even put up more than 100 yards with the whole damn team. So that's one where it's like, man, is Youngstown State the real deal? Did SIU lay an egg? Is SIU just shitty and, we were kind of, looking at some of their other games and then thinking, well, maybe who they beat aren't that good either. It's a lot of speculation. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at a thin line. I'm going to err more towards the team that beat the Bison on the road and who's got the home game. So I'm taking South Dakota -1.
Over Youngstown State.
Yeah, over Youngstown State. And either way, that's going to be a great game. But when it's less than 3 with so many unknowns, I'm taking South Dakota to win it.
It's a pick 'em, basically. It's a pick 'em.
Basically a pick 'em. I hope I get to bet at that. So, finally, I hate doing this. I hate doing this, but there aren't any other Big Sky lines posted, at least not outside of Montana. And I'll get to that in a second. But, oof. All right, Northern Colorado. I never thought I'd do it in my life, but they're home against Sacramento State, who is better on the road, but they've struggled as of late. They might not be we know they're not the same team they were last year.
Some vindication, though, because Stanford knocking off Colorado last night. Some talk about, Sac State, who beat Stanford. Who knows? But this one.
So, is Sac State the third best? Are they a top 5 team in the Pac-12? Anyway, Northern Colorado showing improvement every week. They've got a good coach this year. They're at home. Sac State has got Montana State next week. So if they get out to a 24 or 28-point lead in the first half, and we've seen that how many times, Colby, this year in the first half of these big spreads, and then they don't care about winning by 25 or more. They just want to win comfortably, which is 17-plus points, and then come out healthy to play the Bobcats, which could be that keeps them in contention for a Big Sky championship. It has seed implications on the line. Again, if they beat Northern Colorado by 21 on the road, they don't give a shit. Okay, so they are going to have their subs in more than likely if they're smart. So I am taking the points here. You got a combo of a much better coached UNC team this year. You've got Sac State looking ahead to Montana State. Now just watch Sac State put down 40, trying to get their groove before the Bobcats. But I'm sticking with my pick, plus 24.5. Couple little bonuses I just want to mention. We don't have to count them towards any records or anything, but the Grizz were minus or plus 7.5 earlier in the week on Sportsbet Montana. I hope you grabbed them then. It's now 10.5. That's a little tougher. Montana State was minus 39.5. I would take Pauley there for the same reasons I take Northern Colorado. Now Sportsbet Montana has moved the line, and it's just an awful, awful juice. It's Cal Poly plus 37.5, minus 133. I'm not laying 33 points to the VIG. That's just ridiculous. That's a third of the money you're risking. And then on the other side, I still don't like Bobcats to win by 37.5. So that's a stay away. My prop special of the week, sorry I didn't put this in for you earlier, but I like Jared White over 80 yards. It's just he's been getting double-digit carries against the Division I teams. So, that's the prop bet of the week on Sportsbet Montana. Jared White, 80 yards or more for the Bobcats. Sorry, I took a little more time than I thought I was, but, man, I I like giving few more extra possibilities to our Montana fans out there, the fans in Montana. I don't care about the Grizz fans. No offense, but the fans in Montana betting on Sportsbet Montana, I want to help you out.
Yeah. We got a hard stop here in about 3 minutes, folks, so we're going to go through my picks fairly quickly. I'm going to take Harvard at minus 10.5. Harvard obviously beat Holy Cross earlier this year. Burned me in that Holy Cross pick because I thought that Holy Cross would easily handle an Ivy League team, and they did not. Harvard handled them fairly well. So now Harvard takes on Howard this week, minus 10.5. I like it, the way Harvard played against Holy Cross. Howard has not been a great team. They're in the CAA, sure, but they haven't been great. So I don't know. And with the lines that we have, like you said, Parlay, you gotta work with what we got. This is the line we got. I looked at it. I like it. Next up, you already talked about this game, North Dakota State. Matthew Frazies got me thinking a little bit, the way he was talking earlier this week about how, there's going to come a day when the Fighting Hawks, they ruffle some feathers over there in Fargo with a dub. Could this be the day? Maybe. But plus 7.5, the Bison have to win by more than a touchdown. Yeah, I think I might risk a little bit of money and see what happens because, like you said, it's going to be a grind-em-out game. Could end up being very close. We'll see. Next up, I've got Idaho. So far, what we have is Idaho minus 10.5. That's what we have so far. I like that number. The Kibbe Dome is sold out. It is completely sold out for this homecoming game against the Grizz. Little Brown Stein. Idaho's in possession of Little Brown Stein. They want to keep it. There's a lot of hype going into this game. I like Idaho. All the momentum, all the energy in their building. The Grizz still very anemic offensively. Idaho is not. Then finally, I'm going to keep riding the Hampton train. Hampton at plus 10.5 against Monmouth. Monmouth is an okay team, but I liked the way that Hampton covered against Campbell last week, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep riding it out. I'm going to go Hampton 10.5 plus 10.5 because why not? They look all right. So those are my picks for this week. Parlay. What's our weekly parlay? How do you want to put it together, man?
All right. Let's take a look at my lines real quick. Whew. I think I'm going to go South Dakota -1 for mine.
Okay. So Parlay's putting in USD at -1 for his pick. If I'm picking of these, I think I'm taking Idaho minus 10.5. And then third one.
Whew. Man, I wish I had a weather report in Bozeman. I'm thinking, man, if that over-under is less than 65, when they're playing FCS teams, those overs have been hitting. I mean, bad teams. Yeah. Well, I guess Weber's a bad team, but
bad offense. That's my thing. It's a bad offense. Which Kyler, is Weber a top 125 offense? I don't know, man. I haven't seen anything that makes me believe that right now.
The fans have a pick. Do the fans have, man, with these slim pickings, it's hard to make these parlays. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I got it. If you get the hook, the Furman-Samford game, it's Furman is better. Samford's had their number and they're home. So if you can get 6.5 or higher, take Samford.
Okay.
I like Furman to probably win, but 6.5. It's a bit too many for a home game in a rivalry matchup with a team like Samford who is getting better. They had a bad start to the season, but I'm taking 6.5 Samford. That'll round out the parlay.
All right. So that's USD -1, Idaho minus 10.5, and Samford plus 6.5 or more if you get the chance at it. So that's 1AA Parlay this week, folks. We want to once again give a shout out to FCS Fans Nation, the Fans Nation Network, for allowing us to do this on their network. Really appreciate them. Want to wish you guys the best of luck in your picks. Like we said, you're going to have to keep a close eye on your sports betting apps because there hasn't been a lot out there this week. There were no FCS lines this morning when I woke up on BetMGM. So you're going to have to keep watching. But appreciate you, Parlay. Appreciate you for doing this. And we'll wrap it up like we always do, man. Bet the best, leave the rest.
All right, good luck, people.